Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an excellent game to share with you from the 2024 Tata Steel India Rapid and Blitz. This is a rapid game between Magnus Carlsen on the white ends and Wesley So. Time controls 25 minutes, 10-second increment. Opening, Petrov's defense. Carlsen won this rapid event, scoring 7.5 out of 9, and that registered a 3,000 on the nose performance rating, so he has really been on fire. In this game here, one of his most accurate. Now, the most popular continuation from here is with d6, and after the knight moves, knight takes e4. In this one, it's knight takes e4 straight away, and we continue on this symmetrical path for just a little more. Black temporarily down the piece, but we'll now get it back based on the pin. There we go. Piece one back. Carlsen's still up a little bit, material-wise. Doesn't put up a fight trying to hang on to this pawn, though. He plays knight c3 here. In this open position, trying to hang on to the pawn by playing f4, not developing a piece, probably not such a wise choice. You could, however, consider bishop f4 or bishop to b5. Carlsen has his eye on an early knight b5 move in this game. He has an eye on this vulnerable c7 square, especially after the queens are exchanged, and that's exactly what we have. A queen exchange here. Follow-up, bishop f4. If the knight moves, the c-pawn is a goner. What do you do then? Bishop d6, f6. f6 is played in this game. If you support the knight with the bishop, this move may be tempting, or even this one, but knight b5 here, black would have knight f3 check, and the bishop would fall. So what should you do here as white? In the case of bishop d6, first, secure your bishop, and now these moves are right around the corner to bother the bishop. All right, in this one, it is f6, and from here, queenside castles. Now, why not dive in and target the c7 pawn here? Well, if you try knight d5, bishop d6 is there and things are cool. c7 secure, bishop stable. And what about knight b5? Preventing this and targeting that. Black would have a slick maneuver, landing a check, and after c3, bishop a3, c7 defended. Also know, if white tries to play bishop d2, you can exchange and then the king can step over to secure this point. Okay, in this game it is first king safety, rook activity. Bishop d7, and only now do we have knight to b5. From here, black plays it as a gambit, castles queenside and allows this pawn to be won. Why not take the knight? Well, do know there is value in possessing the bishop pair. So Wesley not so quick to give Carlsen this advantage. He plays it as a gambit, gives up the a-pawn in this one. Queenside castles on board. There goes the a-pawn. Let's get this knight back into the ballgame. Bishop c5, f3, and now g5. From here, Carlsen takes the knight, gives the bishop pair up, saddles black with an isolated pawn. Why play in this way? Why not maybe preserve the bishop and still be up the pawn? Well, if you play bishop g3, you may be inviting additional tempo grabs. For instance, h5, h4. He just goes ahead and gets the move back, you might say. Saddles black with the isolated pawn and focuses on this e4 square from here. Knight c3, g4, pawn takes, bishop check, king b1, and now bishop to c6. So there's a lot of pressure here, this bishop pair. How do you complete development? It's very difficult to hang on to these 2 extra pawns because of these bishop posts. From here, Carlsen first exchanges rooks and then plays bishop to d3. I wondered why that rook exchange is maybe played first, because when you make this capture, you're pulling a rook from a closed file to an open file. Why not instead just play bishop d3 to complete development and then give up the pawn in this way? I believe it's, I'm just sharing my intuitive feel here. Having both rooks still around with these bishops covering these squares here, they don't have many options when you still have both rooks here. So it sort of makes sense to exchange a rook first and only then deploy the bishop. After bishop takes g2, the move played in the game has a wider selection, has many more options now with just one rook around. Where to go from here? It's rook to e1, bishop f4, and now we go with h4. Carlsen is up 1 pawn. He has a majority here. He's going to look to get going with these pawns. Follow-up in this game is h6. Do know if bishop g3, that would be a big blunder because rook g1 and a piece will soon be won based on the skewer. h6 in this game, a bit of a tricky move. Let me throw this position to you as a pop quiz. Here's the question I have for you. Can Carlsen play g5 successfully? Feel free to pause the video and come up with an answer to that. Okay, the answer is no. If you play g5 here, first of all, rook g1 is the move played in the game, but if you play g5 here, thinking that after this, you can take advantage of the 2 unprotected bishops, not exactly. If you try rook g1 here, there would be one saving move for black, and it exploits white's back rank weakness. Black would have rook h8 in this position as a save. Next, looking to exchange that rook. Rook takes bishop, and white will soon be getting mated. Okay. Carlsen, not so quick to play g5. It is first rook to g1. There are many, in this simplified endgame, there are many super accurate moves that are played from here on out. Very precise play. Another pop quiz here. What move would you play as black? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, Wesley blunders in this position. He spent a huge chunk of time. He spent about 13 minutes. He played bishop to f3. There's only one move that holds this position as a draw. Bishop c6 is considered the draw. Let's see why. Now, first of all, after the move played in the game, bishop to f3, Carlsen plays g5. How are things different with this bishop c6 move and then g5? Well, check this next sequence out. This variation I'm sharing with you now really highlights the strength of the bishop pair. Black would have an only move in this position with bishop to e3. See what's happening? Black maintains pressure on the pawn and targets the rook. And where can that rook go? Not g2. 2 options to maintain defense of the pawn, but wherever you go to g3, the bishop is there to continually bother you. You return to g1, the bishop is there once more, targeting you. And if you go to g4, or even g2, the bishop will pivot on these squares and continually bother you. And what's going to happen? Well, we're either going to have some repetition from here, or black's going to be able to successfully win this pawn. How are things different in the game with the bishop playing to f3? Well, it's tactically vulnerable. Carlsen now plays g5, and the follow-up from here is e4. What if black tries bishop e3 in this case? Well, bishop e3, there would be a skewer. You could defend the bishop, but this pawn is just going to run. You could try e4, but there's a capture on e4, and then you could take this guy. No fear of a back rank mate. We have the knight there. One final note is that if black tries to attack the rook in a different way in this position here, instead of bishop to e3, let's say bishop h2, there's no longer pressure on this pawn, so we don't have to stay on the g file. All these squares are taken away by the bishops, but there's rook to f1 here, and white is still considered winning. Okay, in this game, after the recapture on g5, black tries a tricky move here. He goes with e4. Another pop quiz for you. How would you react here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, only one move that keeps the advantage. Bishop captures pawn is played. If you go with the knight, this would allow bishop takes knight, bishop takes bishop, and bishop takes pawn. You take the bishop, mate. So, how are things different with bishop captures pawn? Well, after bishop takes bishop, knight takes bishop, the knight is there to secure the pawn. Things still, despite this bit more simplified endgame, it remains tricky. Precision still required here by white. Still has to sort out some vulnerabilities in his position. The dream, essentially, for white is to maintain this rook right behind the pawn, continue pushing it, solve your back rank issue, finally get a flight square, and get this guy here on a secure square. Let's see how Carlsen manages to do this. Follow up from here, bishop e3. Carlsen plays rook f1. Precise move. How tempting it might be to say to yourself, oh, I'm going to punch back. Well, you would in fact not really be punching back. This isn't even a threat because of the back rank weakness. If you play rook e1 here, black would get away with a draw, would have this beautiful move, rook d4. And now, after the knight moves, the pawn will fall. And when we stare at just this one side of the board, 3 versus 2, that's not going to be enough. Having that one pawn advantage, not enough to win. So, rook f1 is the play here. Rook e8, the knight doesn't move. You move the knight, the pawn falls, the pawn runs. Time sensitive. Follow-up is bishop to h6 here. If you take the knight, pawn advances, and what are you supposed to do here? Rook g4, there's rook f8 check, the pawn promotes, and there's no back rank problems. The promoted queen defends against rook g1. We would soon have white up the exchange and a pawn with the continuation like this. So, what do we do? Well, after the pawn advances, it is rook h6, and now another precise move. Carlsen plays knight c5. If you try knight f6, this seems a bit more appealing on the surface. You're targeting the rook after all, and you have a check in mind, but black would have an only move here to keep this as an even game. Lateral pressure. And what is white supposed to do now? A check, there's a counter punch. This guy is ready to fall next. And if, let's say, you, I don't know, flick in a flight square in a position like this, There's bishop g7, targeting the knight. As soon as it moves, we're winning that pawn. How are things different by posting the knight in this game on c5? Well, you don't allow this lateral pressure. This knight also has this d3 square in mind in the case of b6. In the game, rook g8 is played. If this knight is given a kick, the knight is finally on a secure square. The rook is ready to play behind the pawn. And note there's no issue of a back rank mate with this guy on d3. The knight is watching over that e1 square. Okay, almost all of white's difficulties are solved at this stage. In the case of b3 and knight d3, black's try in this game is with rook g8. Carlsen defends the pawn. And now from here, we have king c8. Question, though. Why not land a fork? Well, what would be the way out of that? Bishop e3, you could play knight e7 check. This is all very timely. Only move with the knight check. Also only move with knight f6. Saying you take my rook, I take yours. You target my knight, I advance my pawn. You maintain a blockade here, no problems. I can play rook to g4. Next up, knight h5, and the pawn is ready to run. So very slick continuation there. Super timely, fancy knight moves, targeting the king, targeting the rook. Bishop e3 not played in this game. It is first king c8, rook g4, smooth sailing from here. Ideal rook placement. Carlsen remains up 2 pawns, passive black rook. Let's see the conversion from here. No problems with the back rank at this stage. And from here, we're just looking to target the blockading piece. Knight f5, bishop f6, pawn advances, and one final move. A nice touch, a nice finishing touch here. Rook e4, and black resigns. Doesn't even allow black to approach here to target the knight. If this king ever moves, the rook can always improve, target the bishop. That would release the pressure on g7. Also note, trying to win the pawn, there is a fork here on e7, winning the piece, or even a pin idea to win the material. Black is stuck. The way I see this final position, these three are restricting these three, these two, and these two offset. It is almost as if the king and pawn are extras in this position. Ways to make progress. White is really spoiled for choice. You could consider maybe creating a passed a pawn or even improving your king. Something like this may be an approach you can take here to make progress. Black is stuck in this final position. White is up the 2 pawns still. What did you think of this one? Anyhow, feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.